And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
He's going to go into the end zone.
Puts it up. Yes! There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
American Pharoah is finally the one. American Pharoah has won the Triple Crown.
And Bonds hits one high. It's a dig. It is out of here. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Unbelievable. A home run for Gibson. And the Dodgers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe.
Football. Some say it's just a sport. Oh, but it's more than that. It's family. It's tradition. It's fellowship. Some people like to paint, like to run, ride bikes. Football. That's what we do. It's sewn into the generational fabric of our families. It's little girls on daddy's shoulders, little boys wearing jerseys in the backyard, scoring a touchdown as if it were their favorite player. It's a story told by Grandpa, from Grandpa's recliner. And one day, you hope that will be you in that same recliner. It's who we are. We can't help that. Tailgating will be different this year. The games will look and sound different. But the feeling will be the same. America needs football. Families need football. Football needs football. One day, our ballparks and stadiums will roar again. But until then, it's time. Let's play football.
It's caught. It is caught. Jerome Jennings. Watson. Touchdown.
Jackson, highlight reel touchdown in this game. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Miami. You believe it. He caught it behind his back. Galloway down the sideline. He's going to score. He's going to score. He's going to score. It's a touchdown. How my. What a hit. Ball's free. On the ground. South Carolina deserves to have it, and they do.
And with that, greetings and good afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends at Stokes Volkswagen. Football, yes, folks, it is back. I am Jamie, that is Darren Goldwater to my left, and collectively we, of course, are JB and Goldwater. And we are here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can watch us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. You can listen on the Podbean app. All of it's free, jbandgoldwatershow.com. I am at Sports Radio JB, and he is at Darren Goldwater. And we thought today we'd do something special because the NFL returns tonight. The ACC kicks off tonight. And it now feels like reality, something that we, only a few months ago, were questioning whether we would see in the year 2020, at least since the national championship game. But it has been here the last couple of weeks, and it will ramp up tonight. And this weekend, it's going to feel normal, Darren. Even with some conferences not playing, football is back.
Dude, it's totally back. I mean, we've got the NFL playing tonight with the Super Bowl champs. You've got Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson on display. You've got Miami trying to avoid its first stretch of 3 consecutive season opening losses since the early 60s. They should be able to do it. They're playing UAB, but it's interesting enough, right? Because how's Derek King going to look? What's this Miami team going to look like? There are enough questions we want answered. Plus, we got baseball. This is one of those days that doesn't happen very often where every single league is playing.
Yeah.
Football and all sports.
Everything.
Everything is being played right now.
That's right. Yeah, football, baseball, the NHL. I think soccer's playing today, the NBA. It's all playing, and we're going to do our best to cover all of it today. Corey McCartney is at 12:30 this afternoon in Atlanta. He's got 29 reasons to join us this afternoon. What an offensive performance last night by the Atlanta Braves. Wow. I mean, there's nothing else you can say. We've got plenty of notes and details on that. We'll talk about the rest of Major League Baseball. We'll talk some football with Corey, too, specifically the Heisman Trophy. Is there anybody that's even contending right now with Trevor Lawrence, who in just over 48 hours, about 55 hours from now, Clemson will be kicking off in Winston-Salem. So excited to get to that with Corey. We'll get to that also with Gene Sapikoff. He's also a Heisman voter, believe it or not. But the state this weekend will welcome back football with the Citadel at South Florida, Coastal Carolina at Kansas, and, of course, Clemson on the road in Winston-Salem against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. So Gene will be here to cover all of that. Scott Glaze on golf at 1:30 today. The statue has arrived in Columbia. If you don't know what we're talking about, stay tuned. We'll tell you more about that as well. And there is lots and lots more we're going to try to squeeze into our program today, college football notes and some NFL stuff and things like that. But I do want to start today on a little bit of a different tone. Obviously, our football intro there probably, hopefully, has given many of you goosebumps, and you're excited to sit tonight and watch a couple of games, one in the NFL, one at the collegiate level or baseball or whatever you want to watch. But this morning I logged onto Twitter and found out that Mark Romness, who I actually used to work with at ESPN Radio here in Charleston, had passed away. Mark has been over at Kirkman Broadcasting for a few years as a producer. Mark is a retired attorney. He has been producing Fan Talk for Bobby Harton for a couple of years, a little bit longer than that. And Mark just recently had heart surgery, and from what I understood, it went very well. And he was recovering. I had texted back and forth with Bobby a few times about what our family, me and Carrie and our children, what could we do? Send a couple of books over. Mark was a big book reader and things like that. So I haven't actually spoken to Mark in a while, but unfortunately, in Mark's sleep, he has passed away. And although Darren and we used to work in that building, Darren does not know Mark. I do. And but all that put aside, I just felt like I texted Darren this morning, and Darren said, "Hey, I'll put something together if you'd like." And I said, "Sure, that'd be great. I appreciate that." Mark's a great man, and his wife is a wonderful lady. They're a very quiet couple. And sometimes I'm not going to sit here and act like Mark Romness and I were best friends because we weren't. We were colleagues, but because we were colleagues, we became friends. And I had a lot of conversations with him. There are some people you meet in your life where you just know that they're just a good person. You know what I mean? Yep. And it doesn't really matter if you're like Mark and Bobby, who quickly became best friends, watch football together and baseball and argue back and forth about the Cubs and the Braves and stuff like that, or the Cowboys and the Bears. I just always had a connection with him. And in that building, he was one of the people that I worked with, Darren, and you know what I'm saying when I say this here, who really cared about everything he did. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have to, because he doesn't make a bunch of money to do that as a part-time producer. There's not a lot of money. It's not a knock on that building or any of its ownership or anything like that. part-time producers in radio don't make a bunch of money, period,
Nope.
at the end, no matter where you are in the world. He was retired, but he cared about it like he was just starting his career. He wanted Fan Talk to be perfect every day. He filled in and produced a bunch of my shows when I was over there. Mark produced tons of Carolina Game Day pregame shows that I co-hosted with Bobby Harton for 5 years. I spent a lot of mornings. If anybody hasn't realized, in the last couple of years, Carolina hasn't really been that good. And when you're not that good, you draw a lot of noon kicks. And so I spent a lot of 6 a.m. mornings talking to Mark about, the show and things like that, but also just talking about stuff. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that when you talk to him, you always learn something. He read a lot. He's very educated, but very respectful, and he was just a great human. And, like I said, I haven't spoken with him in a while and don't work there anymore, but he's going to be missed, and I know he's missed in that building. I know Bobby. I don't know if Bobby's listening or watching right now. I'm sure at 3 o'clock today, I would encourage all of you to listen to Fan Talk, because I got a gut feeling Bobby's going to have a hell of a lot more to say than I do. And he's just one of those guys where you don't probably have enough words to say about him. But I would ask all of you to kindly keep the Romness family in your prayers, because they deserve them. Mark is a wonderful person, and I'm gonna miss him. And there's a lot of people that are gonna miss him. And when you cut on Fan Talk, Bobby's been doing it for 30 years. We're all used to that voice, but a lot of people got really used to hearing Mark's voice too. Actually, kind of redirecting Bobby at times, right, Bob? He's a good man, and so I'm sorry that he's gone, but. Rest in peace, my friend, and we'll see you again someday.
That's right. I mean, I didn't know Mark. What I do know is I know Bobby really well. I know that I sat in Mark's chair for 5 years co-hosting and producing that show with Bobby, and I know that when you cut on the radio or when you watch a show on TV, you can get a pretty good sense of who somebody is behind that mic.
Yeah.
Generally, your gut instinct about someone on the other end of that mic that you're listening to that you don't know but that you've heard for a while, your gut about whether or not they're a good person, it's generally right.
Yeah.
Mark was good to listen to. There have been lots of guys to sit in that seat opposite Bobby. It is it's at times challenging. It's at many more times fun, and it's not often occupied by someone who can balance everything the right way.
Yeah.
The first time I heard Mark, I said, wow, who's this?
Yeah.
Who's this guy that's now in the seat?
Yeah.
And, I'll miss hearing him.
Yeah.
I'll miss hearing him. And thoughts with, I didn't know the Romness family. I didn't know Mark, but I know Bobby really well. Good friend. So certainly thoughts with him and everyone over there.
And Bobby surrounds himself with great people. And if Bobby Harton befriended a guy like Mark Romness the way he did outside of work, he's a good person. Our show's separate from what they do over there, but that doesn't matter. Mark is a wonderful person, and I'm sure he'll be watching the Bears this weekend from heaven, and the Cubs. Maybe the Cubs will win the World Series again this year for Mark Romness. Who knows?
Well, how about this? We can all go have a drink for Mark today. You can head to Dog and Duck or anywhere else. But Dog and Duck has 3 locations: Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clemens Ferry. Have one for Mark.
That's right. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. I appreciate Darren Goldwater for setting aside a few minutes there. And we move right along. Again, in 15 minutes, it's Corey McCartney over in Atlanta, Georgia, and we'll talk about the Atlanta Braves. Matter of fact, I think they just scored again.
Yeah, they probably did. They're probably up to 50 at this point.
Yeah. Wow, what a night for the Braves. And obviously we'll get to football here in a minute, but it's kind of ridiculous to not to open the show with a 29-9 score in baseball. Oh, yeah, the Brewers also scored 19 last night. Problem for the Tigers is they scored none. So you had has this ever happened in baseball? You had one game decided by 20 runs and one game decided by 19 runs on the same night?
Not only has it never happened in the modern era of baseball, I've got this graphic built for you. First time in the modern era, 2 teams win by at least 19 on the same day. First time in the modern era. And the modern era for Major League Baseball goes to 1900. So you're talking 120 years since since this happened.
I mean, this was remarkable. I wasn't watching the game, and I kept looking and thinking, this can't, something's off. And no, of course it wasn't. A franchise record for runs for the Braves. That's everywhere they've ever been. Boston, Milwaukee, Atlanta, everywhere. It's the second most runs in a Major League Baseball game since 1900. There were 30 runs scored in 2007 by
the Rangers.
The Texas Rangers. Freddie Freeman also had his 1,500th career hit last night, and it left the yard. Adam Duvall left the yard last night 3 times. He is the only player to ever do that in a Braves uniform, which is just remarkable. The biggest victim on the Marlins pitching staff was Jordan Yamamoto, who gave up 12 earned in 2 2/3. He is just the second reliever over the past 70 years to allow 12 earned runs in one outing. He joins Vin Mazzaro, who allowed 14 in a game back in 2011. And then the 20-run loss is also the Marlins' largest margin of defeat in franchise history as well. So if it could happen in a bad way last night, it happened. I know I've seen some stuff today with Braves fans. Golly, yeah, we still got to solve the pitching staff. Dude, you scored 29 runs last night. Just give it some time before you get back on that train.
I'll tell you what I was thinking last night, because there's a huge 4-game series that starts tonight with the Nationals. And I'm sitting there watching, I'm saying, score more. Get all of these runs out of your system right now. 2 more notes from that. Tommy Malone, poor Tommy, has now started twice in his career when his team gets 20 runs or more. He's got a no decision in both.
In both games. Poor Tommy. Yeah, I don't know that Tommy's going to be on the playoff roster.
No.
The last 18 total innings for the Braves, they had scored 4 runs, and so you thought, well, they're going to have to snap out of this at some point, and that sure happened quick. And now they'll turn their attention to the Washington Nationals, who they just split a 4-game series against last week. 2-2, bookended it with wins, lost right there in the middle by giving up 20 combined runs in 2 games to the Nats, but going to try to return that favor starting tonight at 6:05 p.m. up in Washington. This is a very important series. Believe it or not, it's also a very important series for the Nationals. I know they're dead last in the East, but they're only 8 games out. They could still get hot, and remember, it's a 16-team playoff this year, so the top 2 in the division will move on. I don't think Washington's going to have enough to get there, but could they just snag one of those last couple of spots? That's what they're shooting for. The Braves, obviously, are trying to extend their lead in the East and win the division again. They're 2 games up right now on the Philadelphia Phillies. But again, last night, I mean, you just look at what happened here. It's hard to not kind of just continue to hammer on that game because you don't see that much, ever, actually. A 20-run difference, Darren. 20 runs. They scored 29 runs in baseball. They would have scored 32 if they didn't miss a field goal in the 5th inning. It was everybody had a hit, at least one hit, for the Braves in the game. Even the guys that pinch hit, they all had hits. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. 29
runs. And so they came 1 run away from the Rangers record that you mentioned. They also had 1 fewer at bat. The Rangers were they were home. So I'm sorry, the Rangers were on the road, so they batted 9 times. The Braves were home.
Yeah.
So they didn't bat in the 9th. So they did it in 8 innings. The Rangers at least gave it all 9 innings. They had all 27 outs to play with to get their 30.
Poor Marcelo Zuna last night only went 1 for 6 in the ball game. But
didn't need him.
That happens. Just a poor little single by Marcelo Zuna. But anyways, the Braves 29-9. That dropped Miami back to 19-19 overall, Darren. And we'll see what happens tonight. Braves, Nationals. So you and Corey can duke all this stuff out here in just a few minutes when he hops on the air with us. But tonight, football is also back. And Darren mentioned at the top of the show, we'll get to Miami and UAB. But it's the Texans and the Chiefs. It's a 9.5-point spread in favor of KC tonight. Most importantly, though, it's the quarterback battle that we all love. Here's Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes to open the 2020 NFL football season at Arrowhead Stadium, 8:20 tonight on NBC. So, with that being said, I mean, the question, we don't get to a lot of NFL around here, but now that the NFL has arrived, Darren, we'll certainly be able to dabble much more in this and link this to an in-state guy like Deshaun Watson. The question is the same question that it's been for the last couple of years with the Houston Texans. Can they protect Deshaun Watson? If they can protect Deshaun Watson, they're going to win a bunch of games. If they can't, unfortunately, they're probably going to be hovering around 500 again.
And there's going to be more questions surrounding Bill O'Brien and his willingness to let Hopkins walk. Yeah. And without the additional weapons there for Watson, it becomes even more important to protect him and give him a little bit more time back there to throw, because he is one of the elite quarterbacks in the league right now, and there's no debating that. So can they protect him? Can they keep him from getting knocked down 50 times?
Absolutely. He's now $160 million richer than he was, I think, the last time we saw him. And so there's a bunch of money on the field tonight between Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. Where does Deshaun Watson, or do you consider Pat Mahomes the best quarterback in football?
I consider him. It's hard not to consider him the best quarterback in football right now. I mean, the vision, the ability to throw the ball 80 yards on a dime off your back foot or on the run to your left.
I mean, I do.
Yeah. I mean, he can put that thing in a keyhole 70 yards down the field while he's moving away from his throw. I mean, that's the vision, the ability to win. Yeah. He's the best quarterback in football. Deshaun Watson's not too far behind him.
Yeah, well, I think Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback in the sport, and I think he could actually even compete for that top spot if he can be protected. I mean, he's got all the ability of anybody else in the league.
Yep.
I'm a big believer in Deshaun Watson. I mean, I always have been, even when he was at Clemson. I mean, forget the colors that I wear. The kid can play.
Remember what Dabo Sweeney said. He's coming out. He said, this is the Michael Jordan of football.
Yeah, I mean, this kid can play.
Yeah.
I mean, and he deserves to be protected. Hopefully he is. Speaking of Clemson and South Carolina, there are other names to watch tonight. Sammy Watkins, of course, will line up at wideout for Pat Mahomes, so still has one of the best wide receivers in the sport coming from the Tigers squad, playing with those guys. And then on the defensive side of the football, Rashad Fenton, former corner in Columbia. He will get the start tonight for Kansas City. Dorian O'Daniel was a backup linebacker, of course, out of Clemson as well. Bashad Breeland's still on the roster, but he is out this week. He's been banged up. So you got those guys. You're going to get to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire run the football tonight for Kansas City as well, coming out of LSU and fresh off a national championship. There's a lot to watch in this football game. I'm very intrigued by some of these guys that we're actually really familiar with around here. And I don't think, I think everybody, 9.5, I think this game is closer than that.
It's the Super Bowl champs opening up the season at home. I have a good friend who I've done some games with who used to play in Kansas City. He's part of the pregame radio crew for Mark Bowrichter. And he tweeted last night that he can't even go to sleep because, he's just so excited. He doesn't play anymore. Mm-hmm. He's just so excited about tomorrow. The folks out in Kansas City, and I know a ton of them because that's where the production group that I've worked with for a long time, that's where they're located. They're jacked. So I would imagine the team is feeling that energy, and regardless of who may or may not be in the stands tonight, I think they're going to come out jacked. It would not surprise me if they cover that 9.5.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I think the Texans are actually going to play decent football tonight. We'll see. I was wrong a couple times last weekend. I've been wrong before. Might be wrong again. But nonetheless, it is the NFL, and it is two of the premier quarterbacks in the sport. We're looking forward to that. Again, 8:20 tonight on NBC. In college football tonight, it is UAB and it is Miami. I think we all expect Miami to win the game, although we've been discussing this week the fact that it's only a 14-point spread, Darren, which is still fairly interesting to me. This is a UAB team that hung 45 on the board last week, but Central Arkansas and Miami are a little bit different. So, the thing is, though, is I don't know if we'll learn enough tonight about Miami to determine, kind of where they'll fall in the ACC this year. I think we all like to think that Miami's one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Derek King's going to get his debut as the starting quarterback, and Rhett Lashley, of course, will be calling plays. Quincy Roche, he'll be there at the defensive end spot for Miami. They already had an opt-out from one of their best, maybe their best defensive player earlier in the year. The other defensive end, his name escapes me right now. So they had some transfers who should contribute fairly quickly tonight against UAB. I expect Miami to win the game, but what does Miami look like in winning the football game? I think that's the key question here.
UAB's already played a game, and that's big right now because if you watched the Navy game, they couldn't tackle. So there have been a lot of different philosophies in the offseason about how do we protect our guys as we get them ready. Yeah. So Navy was going basically no contact. They weren't tackling, which is now done. They are now going full contact because, as their head coach said, Niumatalolo said, he was like, listen, like we can't play football. Like it's great that we got out there and played, but we can't play right now, so we need to go hit somebody. The fact that UAB's played a game, it's going to benefit them for a little bit until the athletes and the athleticism of Miami take control. I expect Miami to cover the 14. I do think it's important how they look, not necessarily on their first two possessions, but as they get comfortable and work their way into things, second, third quarter, before maybe it gets out of hand. I think that could be a telling thing this year moving forward for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I like what JC said the other day. Miami needed a quarterback, and they got one in Derek King. They've lost their last 3 games. They finished 2019 on a 3-game losing streak, and 2 of those 3 losses were not in the ACC. Matter of fact, they weren't good losses at all. 30-24 to Florida International, who is coached by Butch Davis, former Miami head football coach. And you know what, believe it or not, I was on the air last year the day before that game was played, and we didn't pick that game, but I said be very careful because it was on the road at Florida International. Everybody laughed at me, and they lost 30-24. They would lose to Duke the following week, and then guess what? They lost to Louisiana Tech, who's from Conference USA, who is also where UAB is from tonight. Now, there's a major difference here. Miami finished the year 6-7. They were 6-4 going into that Florida International team. Lost the game, lost against Duke. The large majority of that football team could have cared less about playing in the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl. They weren't even there. It was a 14-0. It was the most boring bowl game I'd watched in years. Congratulations to La Tech and Skip Holtz for getting it done. But Miami didn't care. Had Miami showed up and actually given a damn about playing football that day, they probably would have won the game. It's hard to convince me that you couldn't score 15 points against La Tech. So it's going to be different tonight. There's no question. I don't look at that last game and say, well, that can translate. I don't think it translates in any way, shape, or form. So I do think they win the game, but God help them if they lose because they go to Louisville next week, and then they got Florida State, and then they're on the road at Clemson, and it will just be bad news to start 2020 for Manny Diaz. This year's had enough bad news in, and Manny Diaz does not need to lose to UAB.
Yeah, you touched on it. JC said it yesterday. You know, it was tough enough for Manny last year. You don't want to call it a must-win game in week 1. It's about as must-win as it gets for Miami. You lose this one, you're big trouble.
Yeah, you're in huge
big trouble. And you've got rumors already swirling about Diaz if you lose this one.
Well, here's the question with Manny, and I know we got to get to break here, but here is why. Until it's proven here in 2020, the Manny Diaz will continue to be questioned. Because when you look back at what happened last year, all right, so they started the year 0-2. However, they had a shot to beat 8th-ranked Florida, and they didn't do it, but it was 8th-ranked Florida to open the year. They lose the game 24-20. Okay, that's not a bad debut for Manny Diaz as the head coach. You weren't expected to win the game anyways. And then week 2, you go on the road, and people are actually expecting them to beat North Carolina, but North Carolina coming off of a win over South Carolina. Tar Heels beat them by 3. So instead of it being really what's wrong with Miami, it was more along the lines of, okay, North Carolina actually might be pretty good. So he had a little bit of a pass to open the season. They blow out Bethune-Cookman 63-0, and then they get to Central Michigan, and they literally had to hang on to beat the Chippewas 17-12 at the end of the ball game. So they're at 2-2, and then it's Va-Tech, and they lose to Va-Tech at home in Game 5 in a really weird game where they give up 42 points to a Virginia Tech team at that point in time had not been scoring points. And nobody could figure it out. They come back the next week, they beat 20th-ranked Virginia, and you're like, wow, this is really wonky. What happens the following week? They lose to Georgia Tech in overtime, 28-21. So you just knew, okay, this is just really awkward. They're 3-4. Who knows what's going to happen with Miami? And that's the way it continued the rest of the year. They beat Pitt. They beat Florida State. They hang 52 on Louisville and beat them. Maybe they're going to get going. All right, and they're now 6-4. And then they lose to Florida International, Duke, and La Tech to finish the year. So it was an inexplainable, inexcusable season, quite frankly, for Manny Diaz and the Hurricanes. And that's why people question them. That's why this is even a conversation of Well, they better win tonight because they gave so many examples last year of why they can't win some of these games.
I'll give you one piece of good news here before we get to Corey McCartney. UAB took their COVID test last night in Miami. 0 positives. They're ready to go.
All right. Fantastic. Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. So football is ahead. So is Corey McCartney. Enjoy it with a cheesesteak. DB'sCheesesteaks.com. Have it delivered right now. If you've got the Postmates app or the Uber Eats app or the DoorDash app or whatever app you use, they're on all of them. DB'sCheesesteaks.com. Look at that menu. It'll make your mouth water. I promise you that. Don't forget the boardwalk fries and try out my favorite, the Buffalo Chicken Cheesesteak, Charleston's Choice, #1. DB'sCheesesteaks.com. DB's Cheesesteaks in Avondale in West Ashley. Time for a timeout. When we return, Corey McCartney from Atlanta.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. Every 2020 Tiguan S, our best-selling third-row SUV, is $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months. But wait, there's more. With $299 down, you can own the Tiguan S for just $299 per month for 72 months at 0% APR. Not just one at this price, over 22 Tiguans to choose from. All $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months and $299 down, $299 per month. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, we are so desperate for used cars that we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not. We need your trade more, so we'll flat out give you more. And don't worry about your credit. Our lenders are more lenient than ever. So if you're interested in saving $3,500 on a new Volkswagen Tiguan S and owning it for $299 down, $299 per month, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. DB'sCheesesteaks.com.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
The JB and Goldwater Show.
That's us. Because we play this.
And there are these guys in a band on stage bouncing on trampolines, and one of them is playing a vacuum cleaner on his face. It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. This band was going for it as hard as they could. I've never seen anything like it. And I said to the bartender, I was like, who is this band? Oh, this is a band from New Hampshire called Fish.
All right. Our friends Edwin McCain and the Blue Dogs bringing us back here, 12:33 on a Thursday afternoon. Welcome them back aboard the JV and Goldwater Show. It is September the 10th. We'll get Corey McCartney in about 29 seconds. Real quick, though, a quick note from Clemson Soccer. Don't do a lot of soccer around here. However, Clemson's first men's soccer game of the season, which was scheduled to play tomorrow against Virginia, has been canceled because 2 Clemson players have tested positive for COVID-19. The university just announced that, so now they won't play until they host Wake Forest on September the 18th at 7 p.m. With that being said, 29 seconds later, it's our friend Corey McCartney joining us from the heart of hit country, Atlanta, Georgia. What's up, man?
How you doing?
No, how are you doing?
Well, a little tired. I mean, that was draining. You know, it's draining to watch 29 runs. Well, 29 runs, and then the other team going a little bit of a spurt of its own. But that's exhausting. We were actually talking this morning. My son and I were that there's a game that was 29-22, the highest scoring game. Makes you wonder how long it's had to sit through that thing. But yeah, last night had its moments for sure. But man, what an offensive showcase for that Braves team, without question.
You know what I think every time I see blowouts like that? I think of the guys covering the game, the guys announcing the game, because it's not fun. I mean, the fans, you see these runs, and it's, oh, wow, this is great. If you're covering it, you're looking at your watch, and you're saying, is this thing ever going to end? And what else can I possibly talk about?
Right.
How can I survive this game? What was the most impressive stat? There were lots in your eyes last night.
I mean, honestly, I think it was Adam Duvall. I mean, consider in a week span, this guy has 2-3 homer games. He's just, I mean, there's only one other guy who's had more in a single season than he had last night. And then you think of the fact that how few of plate appearances he's getting. He's pulled this off 43 games doing a 60-game season. He's gotten 3 or more plate appearances 29 times.
Wow.
Adam Duvall's not getting playing time, and he's had 3 homer games, 2 in a week. I mean, it's absolutely staggering. I mean, we knew this guy could hit bombs, but I know he kind of gets lost in the shuffle when you think about how much firepower is in that Braves offense. But history is not going to let Adam Duvall be denied any longer.
Has anybody? I know that he's the only player in Braves history to have multiple 3 home run games. Has anybody ever had a 9 RBI game?
No, that's a Braves record too.
Okay.
So he's. I mean, it was just up and down. He just had a ridiculous night. The whole offense had a ridiculous night. And lost in all this is that Freddie Freeman got his 1,500th career hit.
Hitting
1,500 career hits, and no one's going to remember that night for anything other than the fact that Adam Duvall went off and this team scored 29 runs.
And he did that hitting second in the order. I'm just gonna kind of teeter-totter on this limb here and imagine that they're not going to screw with the lineup tonight in Washington.
Yeah.
I would think that everything's safe there. How about the fact that, so you had Acuna with 5 ribbies, Freddie with 6, Duvall with 9. Has there ever been a game with 3 Braves players with 5 or more RBI?
Not that I can find it all. I mean, obviously, up and down, you're just going to find Braves records with this. But, another unfortunate part of it is that Tommy Milone made some history himself here. I mean, he's the first player in history to have 2 10-inning games in the same season backing him and not get a win in either one of them.
Yeah.
So the rotation's a mess. We know that. Fried's out. Wasn't all positive. They're lucky that they scored that many runs, because had that offense kind of dried up a little bit last night or just gone normal season production, they would have lost that game. So,
well,
it was epic.
Yeah, but they could have scored 19 less runs and still won the game.
Well, and the Brewers scored 19 runs yesterday too. So if they
didn't give up any,
Park, they would have lost. Yeah, and they didn't give up a single run.
Braves actually only needed to play to the second inning last night, as a matter of fact, because they scored 11 in the second. 5 players last night with 3 or more hits. That's Acuna, Freddie, Dansby, Duvall, and then how about the return of Ozzie Albies, 3 for 6 last night, and he also left the yard.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you're going to find ways to kind of work him back in, before you move him back up potentially to that second spot. Not that Dansby Swanson, who's primarily filled that role since Ozzie's been out, has given you any reason not to keep him in a key spot in that lineup. But certainly when we talk about the problems with the pitching, this offense getting healthy at this point in the season, and Ozzie Albies coming back like he did, that's certainly a huge positive sign for this team. So we know this offense is going to have to carry them. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Max Fried is probably going to be back during that Orioles series. The 16th is what they're eyeing as a return date. He could be back the 18th in New York against the Mets. But is he going to be able to come back and be exactly what he was? I think the only way this Braves team is going to make some serious noise in this postseason is this offense doesn't have to score 29 runs, but they certainly have to be a very productive lineup in order for this team to have some success.
On Twitter at Corey J. McCartney. Corey joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, 12:39 here on a Thursday afternoon. Yeah, so Fried is out, so it's Anderson, Malone, Tomlin, Wright, and then who else right now until Max gets back?
Did you mention Ian Anderson?
Yes. Yeah, I mentioned him.
Robbie Erlin looks like the other guy in that group, and I know we're not striking fear in anyone's hearts there when you're thinking about rolling out. I mean, Ian Anderson's had some great moments. He wasn't great the last time out. When you think about Ian Anderson, Tommy Malone, Josh Tomlin, Erlin, and Kyle Wright, I mean, that's not scaring anybody. So, they got to hope that they can get Max Fried back as soon as possible. You hope that just this short time on the injured list is going to be enough for him. But the velocity was dipping in the start below the last one that he had too. So, I think that's going to be something to watch. Cole Hamels could make his return. Alex Anthopoulos said earlier this week that they're hoping that that they can get him back in the mix right around that time that Free would return. But he's also not had a lot of innings pitched. They're going to have to build him up as well. So it's not as though this bullpen is going to get some relief with Cole Hamels immediately back in the mix. So it's going to be a little while before things get sorted out, and this offense is going to have to keep carrying a load.
So how big then is this 4-game set with the Nationals? Because the Nationals are starting to play well. There are articles now being written about the feeling in the locker room, kind of reminding people about last year's turnaround from 19-31. As a fan who's watched the games, I can tell you that the level of enjoyment that the players are having out there, it has certainly ramped up. It does look more reminiscent to last year than the start of this year. And with only 20-some games left, how important are these for?
Yeah, I mean, Trey Turner and Juan Soto have been absolutely phenomenal. The Nationals are one of only 4 teams with multiple players hitting 60% above league average or higher. So those two have been fantastic. But when you look at winning percentage on the season, the Braves actually have the second easiest remaining schedule, and that includes obviously these 4 games when you line them up in DC. So I think the Braves just have to find a way to continue this offensive run. I mean, we talked about it last time. You're not facing Strasburg, obviously. You're not getting Max Scherzer in this series. So they've got to be able to capture a little bit of what they did last night and have some offensive success, because we know things aren't going to go great for this rotation. And, how much stress can you put on a bullpen in a 4-game series? We've heard, the last time they played the Nationals, Brian Snitker got kind of criticized for his bullpen machinations, but he didn't want to bring key relievers in when a team was trailing. So he's got 4 games this time around against the same team. So this is going to be interesting to watch how the bullpen game kind of plays out for Brian Snitker in DC.
So is Scherzer not throwing in this series? I've got him down as starting on Sunday. Am I incorrect?
He wasn't. Last I checked, he wasn't. That wasn't what he lined up. If he is pitching, then that obviously changes things. I mentioned to you guys last time this would be the first time that they wouldn't face both of those guys in a single season. So that makes it that much more difficult, because you're not rolling anybody out there anything close to what the Braves can bring in him. So it's going to get dicey. I mean, I really think when you look at a bullpen that's got thrown more innings than anybody in the National League, and you're asking them to step it up, at this point in the season with your best pitcher on the injured list, even if it's only 10 days, it's added stress without question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we'll check into that and see if Max is going to get the start on Sunday. Of course, it is a 4-game series beginning tonight at 6:05 p.m. But if he is, I think that makes tonight and tomorrow even more important, because you got Corbin. You'd have Corbin Saturday, and then you'd have Scherzer. The interesting thing about Corbin, though, how about this? His last 5 starts, Nationals have lost every game. So that could be some good news, or it could be bad news. That means he's due. Of course, he'll be at home. But I would think you want to get him early in this series here to be able to maintain the lead in the East.
Yeah, I mean, we know where things are at. Obviously, the Phillies are kind of barking down the Braves' throat here. And, yeah, you're right. They actually will face no, they will not. They'll get him on Sunday. So you're right. I mean, they're going to have Voth, Fetty, Corbin, and Scherzer. So this is going to be big. I mean, you got Kyle Wright going against him. Wright only went 4 innings the last time he pitched. I know he and Brian Snitker both thought that he's getting a little bit closer to figuring things out. The walks were down in that one. Ian Anderson's going against Patrick Corbin. That's going to be a fantastic matchup there in the 3rd game of this. But again, I mean, we know the quality of rotation the Braves have right now. It's just when you can put Patrick Corbin and Max Scherzer out there, Ian Anderson's had his moments, but this is not a fantastic matchup for the Braves.
We'll get 2 of the best young stars playing against each other. It hasn't happened yet this year either, because for either one or the other, Soto and Acuna have not been on the field at the same time. So we get to watch these 2 kids playing against each other, and that should be some fireworks for any baseball fan.
Yeah, and they're good friends. I mean, remember that when they were Rookie of the Year finalists, they were in Japan playing together. So these guys have a great relationship. I know the fan bases don't like each other really at all. But those 2 obviously, part of baseball's bright young future. So anytime you can get to watch these guys and the fact that we talked about this before, I mean, they're both in that very small class of guys that, are going to carry this sport for a while, but they just go about it in such different ways. It's going to be fun.
Corey, after this series, you've got Baltimore on the road, and then they're at New York, and then it's home the rest of the way. You've got Miami with 4 with Miami, and then 3 to finish the year with the Boston Red Sox. Every game's important. I understand that. But for the sake of radio conversation here, is it fair to say that the most difficult series left on that schedule, again, post-Washington, is Miami?
I think it's Baltimore. You look at since August 31st, Baltimore's fourth overall in terms of production out of their offense, 128 weighted run created plus. They're tied for sixth with 50 runs scored in that time period, and they have the best ERA in baseball at 250 in that span. So don't sleep on Baltimore. They're very much in the mix for the final wild card in the American League. I don't think anybody thought we would be at all worried about Baltimore and Miami in terms of what's going to happen to these Braves down the stretch, but these teams, they may have an easy schedule based on overall winning percentage, but you got two teams fighting for their postseason lives, and you got a team, as you guys mentioned with the Nationals there, that would just love to play spoilers as they try to figure things out for themselves down the stretch.
Would the Orioles be the surprise of the year, let's put it that way, if they can make the playoffs?
I almost think you'd have to say the Marlins, though, right? I mean, because think about how disastrous things were at the offset with them with their own COVID-19 issues. I mean, if you would have told people that team, that was down so many players and just seemed out of sorts and didn't seem to really care about what the protocols that were being set in front of them, that they're in the mix for a postseason spot, I think that would surprise people. I mean, I know we feel like the Orioles are so far back, but they've had so many, top tier draft picks as they've kind of waited things out and not been able, obviously, to bring in anybody of note from a free agent standpoint in years. But I think you can pick either of those two teams, but to me, that just everything that was happening for the Marlins would just make them a pretty stunning team to make it to the postseason.
Here's a little nugget for you. A couple days ago, was talking with one of my buddies, Justin Smoke, who is now signed with the San Francisco Giants. He'll be activated today, actually, in San Diego. The Braves reached out to him. Braves were maybe looking at bringing him on down the stretch, but I think it was just a phone call. It didn't really work out. So he's out west now. Giants all of a sudden have won 5 in a row. Padres, of course, won 4 in a row, so one of those streaks is going to break. And then you got the Dodgers there. I think it's very fair to say at this point in time we might even be able to expect 3 teams out of the West in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously things are so much deeper out there than we thought they were going to be. I mean, Mike Yastrzemski's been great. Brandon Belt's been tearing the cover off the ball since he's been red hot for a long stretch now. He's been one of the top hitters in baseball over the last month plus. So yeah, this the West is going to provide a lot of excitement. And Smoke would have made a lot of sense in Atlanta. I mean, Nick Markakis does not have a hit in the month of September. And certainly Matt Adams was DFA'd. As they brought, as they kind of made some lineup changes there. So certainly he would have made a lot of sense because this Braves team could use just a little bit more pop, and he certainly could have provided as that switch guy.
Well, maybe in the future, reach out to somebody in Atlanta. I'd love to have him a hell of a lot closer to home so I can go watch him play during the season. All right, I do want to get to football here in a minute, but I want to ask you about this. So Justin Timberlake, you seen this news?
Justin Timberlake, where are you going here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know where you're going.
I
got you.
Wasn't he the guy that ripped open Janet Jackson's top?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
I think he did that. Justin Timberlake has joined an investment group that is trying to bring baseball to Nashville. It's called Music City Baseball. I know, Corey, you're aware of that, but some aren't. So it's I think there's a bunch of guys in this. I can't remember. I think Dave Dombrowski actually is in this group.
Yeah, Dave Dombrowski, Tony La Russa is part of it. I believe Dave Stewart's in the mix there too. So they've got a lot of guys are part of this effort to bring baseball to Nashville.
Is this realistic? I mean, Nashville has a AAA team.
I don't think so. I've talked about this before. There's a really weird broadcast foothold when you think about the Nashville viewing area in Tennessee in particular. I mean, you have so many teams that are overlapping. Obviously, you think about the Braves, but they get the Cardinals. Part of Tennessee gets the Reds. And you go into the eastern part of the state, into North Carolina, and you're getting the Nationals and the Orioles broadcast. If another team steps in the mix, there's going to be a lot of teams fighting for those broadcast rights, and the Braves in particular, they have the biggest chunk of it there. They would put up a massive fight. I think Portland makes a lot more sense if you're going to go Vegas. Vegas gets like 5 teams out there, but no one really has that area locked down. So Montreal is another option. There's just so many places to me that make so much more sense than Nashville, and you wouldn't be fighting what you'd be fighting. I just don't see it happening. It'd be great, in terms of the Braves and Reds having another team, right in their backyard to create rivalries with. But to me, it just seems like an absolute long shot for Nashville to get a real baseball team.
Yeah, but if you get a Portland, won't they vandalize the stadium? Isn't that what they do out there?
But think about that from a standpoint though of the Mariners, and the Mariners are off on their own, in the corner up there, and you get a travel partner with them. I think they're to me, they just logistically, it makes so much more sense for Portland to get a team.
Okay, all right. It's 12:50 here on Thursday afternoon. All right, on to football, Corey. Tonight the NFL, of course, is in action, and then we get our first peek at the ACC with the Hurricanes stepping foot on the field for the first time this year. Derek King, Rhett Lashley, of course, is their OC down there now, and then they'll play host to the UAB Blazers, who hung 45 on Central Arkansas last week. Miami, 14.5-point favorites in the ball game. So we all think Miami's going to take a step forward this year. We think, but in the last segment, Darren and I very kindly went over last year's schedule and gave you every reason why they might not. But I think they will, though. They finally actually have a quarterback down there. But what type of quarterback is Derek King? And let me ask you this question. Is Derek King – we've talked about the Heisman race before. I mean, it's kind of right now Trevor Lawrence and like everybody else. I know we're mentioning Spencer Rattler. His name has come up. I would say you might want to put Mac Jones in there at Alabama because he's got two elite wideouts to throw to. But is Derek King in a position now with a new OC down in Coral Gables to maybe inch his way into that conversation? Have you seen enough in his career that makes you think, okay, this kid can play? He might have a chance just to even get into the Heisman conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he was special at Houston. I think we saw, things out of him. I honestly thought maybe he was going to wind up at Oklahoma, when we knew he was going to be looking to move elsewhere. I know Lincoln Riley had spoke about his game when they had faced the Cougars before. The difference between Derek King and everybody else when we start talking about the Heisman race and Trevor Lawrence is Derek King gets to play Trevor Lawrence. And outside Ian Book, there's nobody else that's a legitimate candidate that's going to get that opportunity. So that's obviously going to be at Clemson on October 10th. So that could be a major tipping point in whatever happens in this race because, right now the Irish are the only ranked team that Clemson is going to face in the schedule. Certainly, Miami climbing could change that. But, King's going to have an interesting opportunity there when they face off against Clemson.
I don't know that it's an appropriate question necessarily to ask a Heisman voter, his top candidates list of guys that, you're paying attention to. But with this weekend's ball games, give me some headlines. Give me some notes. Give me some things that you're going to be focused on in the sport of college football.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to see how sharp is Lawrence going to look. He didn't start off especially strong last season. Whether or not that was, he doesn't seem like a guy where the hype gets to him at all. But you certainly wonder about how fast is he going to come out? What's he going to look like? I've talked a lot about Notre Dame before, but I think that's a really interesting team. So I want to see, how they're going to open up. This is a team that doesn't necessarily, always start out the fastest themselves. And then Oklahoma, you mentioned with Spencer Rattler. I mean, this is they're facing Missouri State, which should not be a test at all for this team. But this is another quarterback slipping into that role. So I'm going to be certainly interested to see how well he handles the adjustments because this guy has 11 pass attempts to his name, and he's stepping into a role where the last three guys to do it, you've got 3 Heisman finalists and 2 winners. So the pressure's there for Spencer Rattler for sure.
Well, obviously with Notre Dame being a member of the ACC this year, we're going to pay attention. But how much attention are you paying to North Carolina at noon on Saturday as they host Syracuse?
I mean, we know they're going to get tested defensively. I mean, Syracuse is going to score. That's going to happen. We know how aggressive Dino Babers is. He's not afraid to throw and throw and throw again. So let's see what this North Carolina defense is capable of. I mean, they're starting out in a strong position. So, they're obviously favored heavily, but I'll really be interested to see how well they play defensively against a team that we know is going to be willing to test them for sure.
Our friend J.C. Sherbert, owner of thebigspur.com, which is, of course, is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We play some rapid fire pick'em type games and stuff with him on Wednesdays around here. J.C.'s been covering the sport of college football since birth.
Ever.
He went out on a limb last week, and I said, true or false or whatever it was, somebody other than Oklahoma wins the Big 12. He said true, and he said Iowa State. Now, I'm not asking you to pick a Big 12 winner here. I'm asking you, What do you know about Iowa State? They're a top 25 team to start the season. Are they a contender? Is this a team who, if they play well and things fall in their favor, maybe we could look up in November and say, hey, look, the Cyclones, they got a shot here?
I don't know enough about them to say that I would pick them over Texas with Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah.
Ehlinger threw 10 picks last year, but he's got a lot of weapons back. This is a seasoned guy. I mean, you're talking about the most important position on the field, a guy who's has had a lot of starts underneath his belt. If it's not Oklahoma, I'd really be surprised if it was anybody other than Texas. But I guess we'll have to revisit that one.
What type of leash is Tom Herman on right now in your mind?
I think it's interesting because Lincoln Riley's taken the steps that he has in that program. Even though they haven't won a national championship, we mentioned the Heisman success. I mean, the NFL's, potentially had interest in him too. I think people thought Texas was going to become, a national force much quicker with Tom Herman in the mix there. But I think this year is going to be big for them because, it is so insular, and, it's going to be hard to look outside your conference for opportunities to trump yourself up when everything you're doing is in conference largely. Obviously they play UTEP this weekend, but we know that that's making up the wide brunt of their schedule. So, I think the pressure is on Herman for sure without question this year.
All right, so we're talking the Big 12, and we're talking with Corey McCartney, who is a Heisman voter, and there's already postponements in the Big 12 from a couple of different schools because of COVID-related type of issues. How concerning is this, and how dangerous is this for the rest of the sport, thinking, I guess, in terms of will we make it through this season?
Yeah, I mean, certainly baseball is a little bit different because, when you've had the run of postponements we've had, think about the Cardinals, missed 19 games, they had to backload their schedule. It's not so easy to reconfigure things and reschedule in college football. So, you do wonder what kind of a situation are we going to get into in terms of if Baylor, can't make up this game, or, we're having a rush of games that are postponed. How do we kind of formulate that into who wins a conference championship, and what does that mean for the college football playoff if multiple games or multiple teams that are impacted by this? So, we obviously don't know. I mean, I hate being like this and having that coach speak, but it's almost like you do have to kind of take it 1 week at a time. That's and we'll just enjoy the games that are in front of us this week. And, you'll have some pencil down the line, but, we just don't know. And that's certainly the unfortunate and weird nature of everything we're facing right now.
Well, believe it or not, the SEC model works. Patience, baby. Patience. All right. Our in-state Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are on the road at Kansas. This line has come down. Careful.
What's it down to now?
Coastal beat them last year. Could they go to Lawrence and beat it? 6.5. So you got that. And then maybe somebody knows something I don't know here. You got Western Kentucky at Louisville. Louisville's a team supposedly going to be in the top half of the ACC. Only 11.5-point favorites in this ball game. Does Western Kentucky or Coastal Carolina have a better chance of pulling an upset on the road?
I'll say Coastal Carolina just because I would love to see Les Miles after a nail biter or a loss, just to see what that those press conferences are always fantastic. So I'd love to get. I just want my selfishness here. I just want to see Les Miles.
No, they're not nail biters. They're turf biters. He doesn't have grass
okay,
anymore.
That's true. Yeah,
no more grass out there. All right. Anything we missed, Corey?
No, I think you guys are good. I mean, I'm still kind of trying to sort out everything we saw last night at Truist Park. So I almost said SunTrust Park. That tells you how out of sorts I am with this whole thing. But just obviously an epic offensive showcase without question.
Do they have any runs left? I was watching the runs go up last night as a Nats fan. I'm saying, come on, more. I mean, let's get to 50 here and just leave the tank empty.
How do you feel if you're Nick Markakis and you couldn't even get in at bat in that game? When your team's got that many hits, they couldn't just throw you a bone. Like you haven't got a hit in September. Ender gets 2 outs in 1 inning. Some of these guys that have been struggling could have used a little bit of leverage last night.
True, just a little bit. Well, do us a favor, me at least, keep the Braves in first place until next week. 10 or 15-second answer here. One last one. We know about Max Fried. Obviously, Dallas Keuchel also on the injured list for the White Sox, who are in first place in the Central. He'll be back on the 17th. How significant is that?
We know this White Sox team is poised to make some serious noise. They're in first place now. The Indians haven't dropped one last night, so that's a team poised to make a serious run.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Really good stuff, though, as always, from our friend Corey McCartney. You should follow him if you don't. What are you doing? On Twitter, at Corey J. McCartney. Have a wonderful weekend, Corey. What a great week for sports. You got the NFL, you got college football, the NBA, the NHL. I think soccer's playing, obviously baseball. I mean, it's all out there. We don't have enough TVs to be able to monitor everything, but we know you do your best, and we'll do it again next Wednesday, okay?
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. There you go, Corey McCartney in Atlanta. Time for a timeout. Another one, Gene Sapikoff, but he's here in town. He'll join us when we return on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back 9 is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, 104, welcome back. Thursday afternoon, September the 10th on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Check them out, stokesvw.com. We're at jbandgoldwatershow.com. You can watch us every day on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and you can also listen on the Podbean app. It's all free and it's all available on our website, jbandgoldwatershow.com, across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater. Thanks to Corey McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia. And now we'll stay right here in Charleston, South Carolina. However, this gentleman is well-traveled. He just rode across the country on the big bronze Gamecock from San Diego, and now he is stationed comfortably on Shahid Khan's yacht downtown. It is none other than Gene Sapikoff. Hey, my friend.
You should see the big screen that this guy has. It's incredible.
And you're watching the show inside that yacht right now, aren't you?
Absolutely. And the hors d'oeuvres and the people who serve the hors d'oeuvres, I'm not going to tell you about that.
Oh, I would imagine it's probably not Cheese Whiz and Ritz crackers down there, huh?
No, it's a good laugh, and I can't wait to till Saturday night when he's got multiple games on.
Look here, man. I'm going to make you an honest deal on this. It can sleep 16 guests in 8 staterooms. Darren and I have been doing well. Show's made strides. You've been in this a long time. Probably have a little stashed away. I'll do thirds, and we'll split the $200 million.
That sounds good. And I say we just keep going up and down the Atlantic Coastal Waterway or whatever it's called.
Absolutely, Intercoastal Waterway. Yeah. Yeah,
there you go.
But $200 million might tighten me up. I don't know if I'll be able to afford a captain, but nonetheless, we'll figure it out.
We'll just float.
Once we get out there, we'll figure it out. It'll all work out. All right, Gene Sapikoff, 106 on a Thursday afternoon. Gene, here we go, man. Finally, it has arrived, at least for us in the Palmetto State. We do have the NFL tonight. A lot of Palmetto State ties in that game. Matter of fact, Sean Watson, of course, a quarterback of the Houston Texans. But we got college football. We got Miami and UAB tonight, and then this weekend, they're all on the road. 3 of the 4 teams that are playing. Clemson on the road in Winston-Salem, Coastal in Lawrence, Kansas, and, of course, the Citadel down south in Tampa, Florida. I think we can all agree Clemson's going to win their ACC opener. It's just going to be really by how much and do they cover, that type of thing. However, the Citadel and Coastal have 2 really big opportunities for upsets. Which one has the better opportunity to pull an upset?
That's a real tough one. Coastal has a better team than last year, and they beat Kansas and Lawrence last year, 12-7. Having said that, I'm thinking the Jayhawks are ready for them this time and are very excited to play. I think the Citadel option is going to give South Florida fits, and you have a first-year head coach, and I think Jeff Scott eventually will do it really well. But the reason he was brought to Tampa to coach the South Florida Bulls is because they stunk last year, and there's just not a lot of player talent depth-wise on that squad yet. So I'm going to lean to saying the Citadel has a slightly better chance for an upset, and I think it's a legitimate chance.
Oh, go Dogs. That was, you've got – I don't know much about South Florida right now. I do know that Sincere Brown out of First Baptist is playing down there, and obviously Jeff Scott taking over the program. But outside of that, I haven't seen or heard enough about where their program stands here in year 1 for Coach Scott.
Yeah, they struggled last year, and I think that they have potential, and I really like his coaching staff. The staff includes DeQuan Bowers making his debut as a first-time college head coach. A college defensive line coach. He was a grad assistant and then kind of helping out at Clemson. But I think he could be a really good, coordinator someday mainly. And he was, first-round draft pick of the Bucks down there. So it's a good fit. But as far as how well they will do in their league, I just don't think very well at all this year.
Mm-hmm. With the Citadel only playing 4 games, though, this is a significant schedule, Gene. I think we've talked about this before, but now here it comes this weekend. It's a reality. I know they had some opt-outs, and certainly the transfer from VMI was going to be their starting running back. Mm-hmm. That hurts, but he does return a bunch of guys who can flat-out play. You picked them 2-2 in your preseason predictions in the Post and Courier. Gamecock fans are still mad at you about this. But in saying that, with what we've seen over the last couple of weeks with kind of how the sport has unfolded, opt-outs here and there and this, that, and the other, we saw Army. Mm-hmm. You staying with that 2-2?
I am staying with that 2-2, and the reason Gamecock fans are mad, of course, is because they play 10 games and the Citadel plays 4, and I suggested that maybe they would, win about the same amount of games. But, I think Army looks better than I thought they would, and I've got to admit that. But I think that South Florida go Bulldogs. I think they can handle them. I mean, I don't think it'll be easy. That's a long trip. Probably going to be a hot night in Tampa. It's not so rainy. You know how it is there. But, I think Brett Thompson's going to have the guys ready. And, dang, this is a team, these Bulldogs really thought that they had a decent shot at a Southern Conference title this year. And maybe they would have. Maybe they'll still win one in the spring. But I think they're going to be ready to go. And you saw what happened in the first half at Alabama a few years ago. Alabama's not the kind of team that is going to panic with something like that. But South Florida, maybe they do panic with something like that.
That's a good point. Gene Sapakov's with us, and I think that we had talked about this, the fact that there's an opportunity now for these FCS teams that are playing in the fall. There, however many games the individual schools are playing, there's an opportunity to have a real special year because you play some bigger teams, some travel trips that you don't typically go on. Then you still have a chance to play potentially for a league and national championship if the FCS finally firmly does move their playoffs into the spring. And if that happens, apparently the fall results will be taken into account for playoff seedings, which means this game at USF and the game at Army and the game with Eastern Kentucky, I mean, these aren't just exhibition games for the Bulldogs. There's a chance to help themselves in the playoffs in the spring, as odd as that sounds.
Darren, that's a great point. And what a confidence builder it would be, even if you go, 1-3 or 0-4, just because of the competition that you played. The key for the Citadel, and talking to people over there and to our Jeff Hartzell, who knows everything about Citadel Bulldog football, is how many of those seniors are going to want to play spring football after having played in the fall. I mean, I think that is really what it's going to come down to for the Citadel.
Here's a stat for you, Gene. You can throw that. It's free of charge from the JB and Goldwater show. Okay, you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm bracing myself, but yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. In-state teams, notably now Clemson and South Carolina, playing in Tampa, are 6-1. Gamecocks, of course, 4-1 down there in the Outback Bowl. Clemson actually won an Outback Bowl back in 1991. They did also, if you remember, win a national championship in Tampa against Alabama just a couple of years ago. If the Citadel wins, that would be 7-1 for Palmetto State teams right down there in not Raymond James Stadium necessarily because it wasn't there in 1991, but in Tampa.
That's a great stat. I know the only loss was to Iowa in a game that Stephen Garcia and the guys weren't exactly ready for. But that was a South Carolina team that had just started the streak against Clemson, I believe, or maybe that was the second year they beat them. But anyway, that's a great stat. So maybe some good mojo. And you know what? There's a lot of Citadel grads in that area because it's a pretty good Navy town and a pretty good military town, obviously. And I think that they're going to at least feel at home, even if there's not people cheering for them in the stands.
Well, there definitely won't be people cheering for anybody in the stands in Winston-Salem, the site of Clemson and Wake Forest at 7:30 on Saturday night on ABC. Also the site of College Game Day this weekend.
Yes.
Coming up at 9 a.m. on Saturday on ESPN. But in this game, I think we pay more attention to it around here, Gene, and you've certainly written about it in the Post and Courier. Everybody's talking about Trevor Lawrence, but on a national scale, not enough people are talking about Sam Hartman. What type of opportunity we'll get to Clemson more here in a minute, but what type of opportunity does Sam Hartman have on Saturday night to showcase who he is now as an experienced guy? I think he's a junior with the Demon Deacons, and maybe put himself on the map as one of the elite quarterbacks in a very talented quarterback league.
Sam Hartman's going to get a shot in the NFL. I'm not sure he's going to be drafted. I think he probably will, but you're talking about a redshirt sophomore who already has played in some big games, including last year. His redshirt season led Wake Forest to their first victory over Florida State since 2011, I believe. And I haven't stood up to him this season because you can't, but I've seen him on Zoom a couple of different times. He does not look like the same guy. It's not just the beard. It's the arm muscles. It's the shoulders. This guy now weighs, 220 or something. I think he was like 175 at Oceanside Collegiate Academy. He looks just like that classic quarterback, except that he's fast. And Chad Greer, the former coach at Oceanside, will tell you that, and so will Dave Clawson and Kevin Higgins and all the coaches at Wake. And Brent Venables and Dabo Sweeney just gushed about the guy this week. And, of course, you do that a lot about the opposition. That's what coaches do. But I think it was fairly sincere because, as Venables pointed out, when Sam Hartman was MVP of the Shrine Bowl, Jake Venables, who's now a backup linebacker up at Clemson, and Brent's son was on that team too, and they got to be buddies. So, I mean, he just a ton of respect for Sam Hartman from the Clemson people.
Absolutely. And everybody respects Clemson. They should. They're 33.5-point favorites this weekend. Again, I don't think there's any question that they should win the football game, and we'll see if they cover 33 or not. But, Trevor Lawrence enters the year now as the presumptive leader in the clubhouse to win the Heisman Trophy. He enters the season as probably the top pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. Clemson enters the season as the number one team in the country. What are you most focused on Saturday night with this team that is expected to be maybe the national champions?
I cannot wait to see, and I'm very excited to see the stars of this true freshman class, because it's one of, it looks like, at least on paper, the best that Dabo Sweeney's had, which is saying something. But of course, DJ Uiagalelei, whenever he comes in quarterback, that's going to be fascinating just to see where he is. Brian Breesy, the defensive lineman, just looks like he's going to be a beast for Clemson. And DeMarcus Bowman, I mean, if it wasn't for Travis Etienne, two-time ACC player of the year, this guy, it just looks like a terrific running back as a freshman. He's going to get some snaps, and on with an offensive line that includes like Mitchell Mays and Walker Parks. That's what I'm looking to see, that game within that game.
Where is Wake Forest in the ACC pecking order in your mind to open the 2020 season?
About in the middle, and I mean, they won 8 games last year. They're probably going to be harder pressed to win 8 this year because, they don't have those non-conference games. But I will say this, that no one consistently overachieves like Dave Clawson's teams do. And when you look at what he's done at Wake Forest, but, he did the exact same things at Fordham, at Richmond, at Bowling Green. They kind of get better, and then they stay good. And, 4 straight bowl games for Wake Forest, including 3 wins in those games. And, the loss was last year to Michigan State in the Pinstripe Bowl, and it was a close game. That's just really impressive. Before the end of the year, they'll be pretty good. And also watch this defensive end, Carlos Basham for Wake Forest.
Yeah.
McShay and Kuiper have him as a top half of the first round pick.
Yeah, no question. There are actually some really talented defensive linemen in the ACC this year. Clemson has a bunch of them. This kid, Quincy Roche down in Miami, we'll hit on the Hurricanes here in a minute. I asked you that question, though, Gene, because I want to see how much we can kind of gauge from the Tigers on Saturday night, because now when you look at the rest of their schedule, now that it's kind of been revamped, or not kind of, has been revamped because of COVID, there are more challenges than there were before. We always knew about Notre Dame. We knew that. And we know that Notre Dame's going to compete to probably maybe see Clemson in the ACC championship game at the end of the year. But now Miami's on the schedule, and you got Derek King down there, and they added Roche, and Rhett Lashley's calling plays. We'll see what Florida State looks like in November. They do have to go to Virginia Tech to finish the year. It will be cold in December the 5th. So there are different challenges than prior on the 2020 Tigers schedule. And so I just want to see, whatever we see on Saturday night from Clemson, how we determine that when we look at what's still left.
Yeah, because everybody got weird changes in their schedule. Okay, South Carolina's obviously got a lot tougher, for instance, but Clemson's got backloaded because now you're looking at Wake Forest, the Citadel open date. You're just not going to know for a while. Down the stretch, just in November, at Notre Dame, open date at Florida State, Pittsburgh at home, and then December 5th at Virginia Tech. That's the meat of the schedule right there. And so it's good for Clemson because they've got some younger guys in certain spots and they can develop their depth. But, hey, just like with every team in college football that's playing, the luck of the virus is just going to come into play so much for all these squads.
Yeah.
The luck of the virus. That's not exactly the way we've heard it over the last couple of months.
Oh, I think you
maybe
said,
the opposite.
I think you said Irish.
Yeah,
No.
certainly. You wrote a piece about Galloway, Clemson's tight end. What'd you learn about him in researching for it?
Oh, but I love this guy. Smart kid, nice kid, very motivated. I mean, had to obviously sit out last year because of the Austrian penalty that he got before the Cotton Bowl in 2018. Didn't get to play in that national championship victory over Alabama. But, man, I mean, he's 6'4" and 240 and can run fast, good hands, and they are going to move Braden Galloway all over the place. I likened him to Shannon Sharp, and it's going to be like that. I remember seeing Shannon Sharp sometimes lining up in the backfield, definitely blocking as a tight end in the slot and split wide. That's what Clemson's going to do with Braden Galloway, and they need that because with Justin Ross out and T. Higgins gone to the NFL, at least early on, there's not a lot of experience at wide receiver after Amari Rodgers.
Wow. Yeah. Gene Sapikoff on Twitter, at Sapikoff. You should follow him. You should also pick up the Post and Courier and read all about it. All right, speaking of Gene's columns, Sapikoff, Clemson versus Notre Dame in the ACC championship game. Not so fast, huh, says Mr. Gene Corso. Well, I know we want people to read the column. They need to if they haven't already, but can you just give us a hint as to why not so fast?
I think North Carolina is going to be really good. I think Sam Howell's a dark horse Heisman candidate, and that he's got two good running backs there in Michael Carter and De'Ami Brown, and he's got some really good receivers. I mean, I think that this guy Javonte Williams is terrific, and he's not the only one. So I think North Carolina can score. The question is, can they stop anybody? I think Virginia Tech's going to be better, and I think Miami, they were deceptive last year. They, had a 6-7 record, but they lost a lot of close games. And that one that sticks that, everybody knows they lost to FIU, but, they barely lost to Florida. Yep. And I just think Derek King can be the difference maker there, and that I wouldn't be surprised to see Miami against Clemson in the ACC championship game.
Ooh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, Darren and I were talking about this at the top of the program here, Gene. I mean, this is if you go back and look at 2019, that's why so many don't really know what to think about Miami. They've got UAB tonight. I think we should all expect that they're going to beat them. I think they will beat them. Is there a chance they could lose a game? I guess there's always a chance. They did lose to La Tech in the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl at the end of the year, but there wasn't a soul on that Miami roster that gave two craps about being at that ball game, and they played like it. And Skip Holtz and the guys got them. Yeah, so you look at it. When they opened the year last year, Gene, like you said, close loss to Florida, and then that close loss to North Carolina. But I think more people gave credit to North Carolina because they just beaten South Carolina, then they beat Miami. But then they gave up 42 to Vatech. They hadn't scored any points, and then Vatech hangs 42 on the Hurricanes, lose. They lost to Georgia Tech. Can't figure out how that happened. And then, FIU against their former coach Butch Davis, and then David Cutcliffe and Duke get them. It was strange. But you think with Derek King, now they've got more of a system in place, and they can if they can score points, they'll win a bunch of games.
That guy's a ridiculous talent. I mean, I think people, they remember last year because he didn't, play at Houston. He redshirted, but the year before, he was just amazing. I mean, he was just a terrific player. And I think, he threw 36 touchdown passes, but he's good enough to run for almost 700 yards. That's what he did in 2018 at Houston. And so you plug him into that roster, and I think good things are going to happen because, I don't know, I think the team with the second best overall roster talent after Clemson in the ACC could be Miami, maybe still Florida State, maybe North Carolina, but Miami's right there with everybody, possibly Virginia Tech, and I'm not counting Notre Dame in this conversation because they'd obviously be. But, I think Miami has a chance. A tough schedule, obviously, because they have to play at Clemson, for instance, but I think it's at least a shot that they have.
Are you surprised we're at this point right here after the last couple of months where the NFL and the ACC are kicking off tonight?
I am. I thought that things might be pushed back a little more. I remember talking about this clear back in April and thinking we are going to have a fall season. It's going to be a shortened fall season, and it's going to be pushed back. And I was kind of thinking late September, maybe even early October start, something like what the SEC is doing. But I don't know. Keep your fingers crossed. It's worked out so far.
That's right.
It has. Yeah, football is here. All right, real quick here, finishing up this college football conversation, kind of. We've already mentioned Trevor. You've mentioned a couple others, but this weekend with the Big 12, the ACC playing, and others, the group of players that you're keeping an eye on, in addition to Trevor, we know that, in the Heisman Trophy race.
Ooh, that's a tough one, but I'm going to say that I still think the two quarterbacks out of the Big 12, Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma and Sam Ehlinger at Texas, who I think is just consistently underrated. Those two guys, if Sam Howell can get off to a good start on Saturday, the Heels playing Syracuse, I think he could be there. And there's no disrespect to Trevor Lawrence, but I just don't think he's going to be in games very long this year at all, and especially not early. So I think the two quarterbacks in the Big 12, and again, I'm really intrigued by Sam Howell. And, once the SEC gets going now, there's a lot of other guys, including about 4 at Alabama.
Yeah, I would say so. All on offense. Maybe a defensive guy too, by the way. Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. I don't think that Trevor Lawrence will come out of the game very early on Saturday night. I think Dabo wants to get him settled into midseason form quickly, and I think even if they're up 45-3 in the fourth quarter, he'll probably be in there for another series before they yank him out of there. But that's just me.
It could be.
I've been wrong before.
You could be right about that. That would make sense. Not sure what the weather looks like there, but probably going to be a hot night. That wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just.
And he also, because he also knows that he's got Citadel bye week coming up in the 2 Saturdays after this. So maybe you're right about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been wrong before. It could happen. There's a guy that used to play quarterback at Clemson. He's pretty good. Deshaun Watson. He'll be in primetime tonight against Pat Mahomes, 8:20 on NBC. But I guess the question still with the Texans is, can they protect him? I don't know. We'll find out. I don't know if they'll go win the game tonight either. I do think this game will be better than maybe some people think it will. But there's about, $700 million on the field tonight between these two quarterbacks? Isn't that true?
Yeah. Also, you have to say that in the entire NFL, if you want to talk about the edge for a team during COVID, playing on the road, not having to face those Kansas City fans, that's going to be a plus for Deshaun.
Good point. What anything this weekend in the NFL outside of tonight's opener that you're really, really paying attention to? Like, is anybody even paying attention to Tampa? Does anybody even care about the Bucs and the Saints? It is Drew Brees and Tom Brady.
I'm curious.
Who are the quarterbacks there? Yeah. Now, I'll tell you a game I'm fascinated by, and I'm telling you on both sides, and this is the Las Vegas Raiders against the Panthers. Las Vegas Raiders, Brian Edwards is probably going to be in the starting lineup after playing for the Gamecocks just last year. Mm-hmm. And as Mark Davis told me on the phone a couple weeks ago, we are Clemson West. John Simpson, Tanner Muse, Hunter Renfrow, Trayvon Mullen, Cleveland Farrell. I mean, that's a lot of Clemson guys that are going to be on the field, and that's a really cool thing. It's just sad that for Brian Edwards and all those Clemson guys, a lot of their friends and family cannot have their fannies in the stadium in Charlotte to see that.
That's a really good point. Keyshawn Nixon joins Brian Edwards in Vegas as well. Keyshawn is backing up, I think, Trayvon Mullen in the secondary. And then the Panthers are going to start 4 Gamecocks. They start Dennis Daly on the offensive line. They start Joseph Charlton at punter, and they start Pharaoh Cooper at punt returner. So there's a bunch of Tigers and Gamecocks roaming around in Charlotte this weekend.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. And, man, I'd like to hear just, Hunter Renfrow and Brian Edwards in the same receiver room. They must be having some good conversations. They're both on the Grand Strand. That's just a really cool story,
Yeah, you should be – what are you doing? You should be in Charlotte. You got to be all over that.
Well, I suggested that the Post-and-Courier send me for a couple of weeks to Las Vegas to look into this, but they've balked at that so far.
With a bag full of cash?
Do you need a chaperone?
Yeah.
Could y'all put about I don't know, 10 grand in unmarked bills in this briefcase and ship me off to Vegas for a couple weeks. I got a story to do. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Gene. We'll finish with South Carolina quickly here. They're still a little bit over 2 weeks from kicking off. But here's the good news. After 3.5 years, the statue has finally arrived on the corner of George Rogers Boulevard and Bluff Road. Over the next 2 weeks, they'll be putting this thing together, and it'll be right there before we walk into the ballpark when they take on Tennessee on the 26th. But over the last – I know we got a big scrimmage coming up Saturday for Will and the gang. They'll scrimmage at noon. Over the last week or so, post-scrimmage last Saturday, what is most noteworthy about 2020 for Carolina football right now for you?
I think they want more turnovers from that defense. I know T-Rob was talking about that going into the scrimmage, and Will Muschamp was kind of bragging on the offense coming out of it there. They need to get that ball on the ground. Absolutely. A lot this year. More than last year and more this year than in a lot of other years because that schedule is brutal. Of course, though, the quarterback battle where Helinski was the star of one scrimmage, Colin Hill the star of the other, and now we're going to see going down the stretch. I think they're both going to get significant playing time against Tennessee. I just did.
I you know what? I don't disagree with that. I do too. I
agree.
I totally agree with that. I've got this weird little hunch that Colin Hill is going to get the nod here, but I don't think that's going to mean a whole lot. Gene, what's coming up in the paper the next couple of days?
Yeah, we've had just tremendous coverage. Got to brag about the Post and Courier. I mean, we have on the front page today and on our website a great story about, Josh Needleman just hanging out with Clemson students on the streets of Tiger Town last Friday night just to see like what's going on with these mask ordinance and stuff. David Cloninger, just so much good stuff about the Gamecocks and what to look forward to. And then I've got a column tomorrow in the Post and Courier and on our website, postandcourier.com, about how Travaris Robinson and Mike Bobo and Tony Elliott and Brent Venables and all these other coordinators are having to try to rep depth and prepare as many guys as possible for a very uncertain COVID season. And I think you're going to see more walk-ons playing significant college football time than you've ever seen before. And that's tough to get everybody enough practice work.
Wow.
I missed my calling. I should have been about 25 years younger, and I could have played.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. This is a bad year for hotels and for restaurants and for the cruise ship business, and a great year to be a college football walk-on.
No kidding. If walk-ons play in Columbia, keep an eye on the names Staley, Goodman, and Brooks. Robert Brooks' son, who is a star wide receiver at Carolina. Okay. And Deuce Staley's nephew and Andre Goodman's son are all walk-ons on the Carolina football team.
Well, there you go. And, hey, they might be called to action here at some point. I mean, I think we kind of hope not, because that would mean there's like some contact tracing going on. Yeah. But, yeah, it's going to be a wild and wacky year, as everybody knows.
Absolutely. Gene, I agree with you, and I'm glad that you said what you said. The Post and Courier right now, always, but certainly right now as we're getting into football season, between you and DC and Josh and Jeff Hartzell, and the list goes on, y'all are really tremendous. You really are. You deserve a ton of praise, and I can't thank you. I'm going to speak on behalf of Darren's. I know he feels the same way I do. We cannot thank you enough for what you do day in and day out. It means a lot.
Yeah, and Hartzell with the South Florida connections to the Citadel with Jeff Scott and Brad Scott, he's done a great job leading up to what I think is a very intriguing game for the Bulldogs.
Can't wait for Saturday. Don't want to forget my friend David Shelton. God, he's gonna punch me in the face now. That's not good.
Oh my God, yeah.
Between bites of mac and cheese, he'll find a way to throw a right hook.
Shelton helped us out last night on the debut of Keating Roofing Friday Night Rivals. He helped us out with some stats because he was on site. We were studio-wise, yeah.
He's pretty good guy.
Outstanding.
Yep.
Gene, thank you so much. Have a fantastic weekend, my friend, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
There you go, Gene Sapikoff on Twitter, @Sapikoff. I know they're all mad now. Now Scott Glaze is ticked off. It's 1:34. We're late, so we'll hit a timeout. When we return, we'll head up to Hollywood, South Carolina. That's the home of the Stono Ferry Golf Course, and that's where Scott Glaze is standing by. Hang tight, the JV and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. Every 2020 Tiguan S, our best-selling third-row SUV, is $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months. But wait, there's more. With $299 down, you can own the Tiguan S for just $299 per month for 72 months at 0% APR. Not just one at this price, over 22 Tiguans to choose from. All $3,500 off plus 0 APR for 72 months and $299 down, $299 per month. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, we are so desperate for used cars that we'll take any trade in any condition, running or not. We need your trade more, so we'll flat out give you more. And don't worry about your credit. Our lenders are more lenient than ever. So if you're interested in saving $3,500 on a new Volkswagen Tiguan S and owning it for $299 down, $299 per month, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
Hey guys, it's Darren, just here to tell you about our good friends over at Dog and Duck. They've got 3 locations, one in Bell Hall, one in Park West, and one, the new one, out on Clements Ferry. I can tell you from personal experience, it's the only restaurant in town that I've been to since this whole place has reopened. Everything is socially distant, very comfortable, and to top it all off, great selection of rotating craft beers, food specials every day, family meals. If you don't want to go in, you can order it and have some curbside pickup as well. Dog and Duck, 3 locations, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
Now, hear this.
Who the hell is that?
The JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
All right, 136, final segment. Thursday afternoon, September the 10th. JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Thanks to Gene. Thanks to Corey. They have been back-to-back on our program today. And now thanks to Scott Glaze on Twitter, at Scott Glaze. Yep, shocker. He's the golf pro at Stono Ferry in Hollywood, beautiful Hollywood, South Carolina. StonoFerryGolf.com to be able to book tee times and get lessons and so much more. Learn about the golf course. The links at Stono Ferry on the banks of the Stono River.
I see, Scott, there was an Oklahoma City flag behind you that's gone, and now I see a Braves flag behind you.
That's right. Well, last week that was coming off a Game 7 loss for my boys, my Thunder there, so I had to fly the OKC one more time this season, but now the Braves are back up. They did well last night, 29 runs, pretty good. So yeah, just flying my allegiances. I'll try and find some different ones. I really need to find a Sumter High School one back there. That's what I need up there. Go back to my roots. But
the Gamecocks.
Yeah, that's right. The Gamecocks, original Gamecocks, Thomas Sumter.
That's right, so. Thomas Sumter.
All right.
Don't let the hitch break on that bandwagon, man.
What bandwagon?
Anytime someone's doing good, all of a sudden he's flying the flag.
Hey, trust me, I can recite some Braves players name for name, especially back in those '90s teams.
Oh, I mean, come on, everybody can do that.
I've ridden with the Braves for a long time.
I mean, we can all do that, man. We can roll out the starting lineup from the World Series, can't we?
I can give you the Pirates starting lineup when they lost to Sid Bream and Francisco Cabrera. I can give you that one.
The common screw up with Braves fans with that World Series team is who played center field. Do you realize that? Oh, everybody always says Otis Nixon. It was Marquise Grissom.
No, Marquise Grissom. Yeah, he made the final out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a hell of a catch, routine fly ball.
Can of corn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that seems like just yesterday. 25 years ago, the Braves won the World Series.
You know what was just yesterday? The Nationals won the World Series.
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems like a long time ago, Mr. Last Place.
Seems like a good time to change the subject.
Yeah, old Mr. Last Place chiming in over here. All right, Safeway Open teed off today. Right now, Russell Knox with a K. 4 under through 7. He's a shot ahead of Chess Hadley, Cameron Davis, and Brendan Steele. But I don't know that is what is on the forefront of everybody's mind right now in golf. I think they still want to go back to Mr. 15 million. Watching DJ win it last weekend, it was great until you saw Paulina show up, and it was better. But no, I mean, Scott, let's just hit the pause button here on the U.S. Open and the future of golf. Let's go back to the last month. I mean, compare this stretch by Dustin Johnson to some of the greater stretches that we've seen in golf, at least in recent history.
It's been one of the more impressive stretches that we've had in recent history. It's really hard to quantify it when we've seen these phenomenal stretches that Tiger had, going on 20 years ago now, and then even about 10 years ago. He's just done it his whole career. So you can always spit out these absurd numbers that Tiger's done. This does not compare, but I think in recent memory, this is one of the more dominant stretches that we've ever seen. It has been a short little run, but I think it's funny how Dustin's run started when Brooks Koepka started throwing a little shade his way. What has subsequently happened is Koepka shot a 74 in the final round of the PGA Championship, withdrew then from the playoffs, now withdrawn from the U.S. Open. Dustin finished second after the comments, has finished second at the PGA Championship. He won the Northern Trust, was right there, lost in a playoff at the BMW Championship, and now won $15 million in the FedEx Cup, and is just I know you said let's not look at the U.S. Open, but just quickly on that, if people are not betting on Dustin Johnson to win the U.S. Open next week, they're on something. I mean, the guy is playing phenomenal golf, and he himself said he could even probably play a little bit better. Dustin. Boy, Freudian slip there. About to say Tiger, but now with the win at the Tour Championship, Dustin has 23 wins in his career spanning back to 2008. That was his rookie season. It's well documented that he's won every year that he's been on tour. He has 23 wins. That's 2 more than his next closest player in wins since 2008, and that's Tiger Woods, who's had 21 wins since 2008. That was also his 3rd win of the season. Since 1990, the players with 3 or more wins in a season, it's a very short list. You have Tiger Woods, who has done it 14 times. Phil Mickelson's done it 5 times. Vijay Singh has done it 4 times, and now Dustin Johnson has done that 4 times in his career. So he's really putting together quite a stellar career. It was a major goal for him to win the FedEx Cup. I found that interesting on the broadcast that he verbalized that. That's not really the type of guy that DJ is to kind of verbalize some of his goals. So he really wanted to win, and he did in dominant fashion. Even though he kind of didn't play his best on Sunday, but did enough and did what he had to do to take home just a chunk of money. Let's see. He was, I have this written down somewhere. He was 45 under par during the playoffs. That was 16 shots better than any other player. So in just 3, and that doesn't count the starting strokes that they had in Atlanta at the FedEx Cup. He was 45 under par. That's 16 strokes better than the next closest player. So to do that over the course of just 12 rounds is really, really impressive. And I think Dustin, we talked about this at Golf's Restart, that we're going to have so many things crammed into a short amount of time. We're going to have, I think, 7 major championships, basically all within a year or just over. We're going to have an Olympic Games, 2 FedEx Cups, all these World Golf Championships, a Ryder Cup. And I talked about it then that if someone gets hot during this stretch, you can create a heck of a career for yourself in just a short amount of time. So if DJ is able to continue to ride this wave and contend in these major championships and start knocking those things off, I mean, who knows? But final little fun tidbit about the FedEx Cup is that the state of South Carolina has the most FedEx Cups in its brief history. There are 2 champions that hail from South Carolina that have won the FedEx Cup. Dustin Johnson won it this year, and Bill Haas a few years ago.
Yeah.
So the state of South Carolina has 2 FedEx Cup victories.
I want to add to your numbers here because I've got the numbers as well, and you're exactly right. But in the last 4 tournaments, he is 66 under par.
Can you imagine that?
That includes the PGA Championship, and of course, that does include that 10 strokes that he was, that he had received to start last week's Tour Championship. And if you include the St. Jude, 74 under par in his last 5 tournaments. And let's remember something here, right, Scott? And this is what I want you to speak to. He played the St. Jude, the FedEx Cup, July 30th through August the 2nd. The following weekend was the PGA Championship. Then he had 11 days, and it was the Northern Trust. Then the following weekend, the BMW. Then the following weekend, the Tour Championship. It's not like he had any breaks here. He was just rolling right along.
No, just rolling on through. And let's not forget, Dustin showed brilliant golf at the Travelers Championship, which was such an impressive win. That was one of the first events back. He shot 61 in the 3rd round. Not too often in the same season are you shooting a 61 and a 60, and pretty close together. But he played scorching golf at the Travelers, and then came to the Memorial and missed the cut with a couple of 80s, and everybody was saying, what's wrong with DJ? He shot, I think, 79 in the first round of the 3M Open up in Minneapolis and withdrew. And then everyone was really scratching their heads on what was wrong with DJ. Well, he came back with a vengeance. And he started when we had the return to golf at the Colonial back in, I guess that was June when we started again. He was 111th in the FedEx Cup rankings, and then ended up dominating the FedEx Cup and ultimately winning the $15 million prize. He led the entire tour since the restart at Colonial in scoring average, 68.2. That is hot right there. That is sizzling hot. He also led in total strokes gained since the restart at 1.76. So the guy, I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. I think over the next few weeks and into the fall and this revamped schedule, he's going to be a force.
They were talking a lot during the broadcast about his change in putting, certainly being more deliberate, him and his brother, who's his caddy, reading the greens. What changed? What were they doing? Because other than basically describing how deliberate it is, contrary to how he plays every other shot outside of the green, what exactly was different on the green that was working for him?
It just seems to me like they're taking a little more time on the greens, being more deliberate in their reads, reading from all 4 sides of the hole. You'll see Dustin the last couple of weeks has read the putt from behind the ball. He's read the putt on the opposite side from behind the hole, and he's also looked at it on both sides too to kind of see the elevation there, if it's uphill, downhill, maybe see a little something in the break from a different angle. He's been more deliberate with that. They've been more deliberate with their greens books. So not only do you have a yardage book for every course on the PGA Tour that has all the sprinkler heads down, all the yardages to bunkers and hazards and so on and so forth, there's a greens book as well that is almost like a topographical map of these greens and shows severity of slopes. So they have really studied those. And then Austin, DJ's brother, also reads greens using a method called aim point, which we see Adam Scott using, several other guys on tour, where you use 1, 2, 3, or 4 fingers and your dominant eye. It's too much to get into here, but DJ has called in Austin a lot more on green reading, it seems, the last few weeks and even this year. And it certainly has helped because his putting has improved. DJ's always been a great putter. That's how I knew DJ back in college golf and amateur golf. He could get up and down out of a trash can and no problem. Well, once he made it on tour, the talk was all about his distance. The guy's always been able to just flat fill it up with the putter. It's just really magnified on the PGA Tour because all of those guys are so good. You have to be elite at basically every skill set if you want to stand out like DJ has.
All right, Scott, to finish up here, as we look ahead to the U.S. Open, which 1 week from today they'll be on the course, and we're all fired up about that. But keep in mind, oh, hey, important to this, they're playing in Napa.
Yeah.
How close are these wildfires?
Pretty close. I saw pictures. I've not seen any of the coverage yet today, but I did see pictures earlier this week where they had to bring out portable, almost stadium lights because it was too dark for these players to see at the practice facilities at like 10 in the morning.
Wow.
There were some crazy shots that I saw of the course going on. Normally, it'd be a great time to be in Napa and to enjoy that part of the country, but certainly not this week. And this, yes, as we look forward to the U.S. Open, this is going to be a down week, especially after the last few and the level of golf we've seen and the big stars that we've seen as everybody preps for next week. And it will be definitely a different style of golf than we'll see next week at Winged Foot. They're already calling for Winged Foot next week to be, in 1974, when Hale Irwin won the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, he won, I think, with a +7 total. It was called the Massacre at Winged Foot. And they're calling for a second coming of that they have made this golf course so difficult that par is going to be a really true test. So I'm certainly fired up about it. I love watching U.S. Open golf that's that difficult.
I love seeing professional golfers challenged. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun to watch them go, 59 or go like DJ just went 75,000 under in his last 4 rounds. Like, that's fun. But watching these guys challenged and watching them unable to stop the ball on the green, it makes you feel like you're not as bad as you are.
All right.
Right. I think it's great to see them and I wouldn't want to see it every week. I understand the PGA Tour's product of wanting to make it in. I do like the fact that the USGA values par. And if these guys next week, if they hit it out of play, they're not going to be able to advance the ball to the green. We're going to see a lot of scrambling for par, and it's really going to test the intestinal fortitude of some of these guys because you got to gut it out to win a U.S. Open, and that's real fun, gritty golf to watch.
All right, you got 1 minute to answer this. So we know DJ is going to be a favorite. Give me 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 more guys to just keep an eye on.
Well, I've been doing pretty good with my picks recently. Justin Thomas didn't quite get it done last week. I think I've picked 3 winners this week or this year. This week at this Safeway, I'm going with Brendan Steele. He is a 2-time champion on this golf course out in Napa, won it in 2016, 2017. All-time strokes gained there is plus 1.47. He's already off to a good start today. So watch out for Brendan Steele this weekend. I think Dustin, obvious favorite at the U.S. Open. I don't think someone like DeChambeau is going to be able to overpower the golf course. Koepka, if healthy, would have been a favorite because he's got that out. U.S. Open resume. He knows how to win the U.S. Open. I would really watch out for Colin Morikawa. Would not be surprised if he made a little bit of a run because he's such a great ball striker, and you're going to have to keep the ball in play and keep it on the right part of the greens out there. I just don't know if his putter is going to be good enough. I would really also watch out for Xander Schauffele. He is a fantastic putter. That doesn't get talked about enough, and he's also long off the tee, not a bad ball striker at all. It's going to be a really great U.S. Open. It's so tough to go against Dustin. But I think going into next week, we'll really see who's in good form. Justin Thomas is another one. Jon Rahm. I mean, all of these guys, we've seen really, really great form over the last several weeks. So it's going to be one of the more exciting Opens to watch in recent memory.
All right, buddy. Quickly, tell us about number 12 this week.
Number 12 is named Redoubt. This is where our iconic cannon sits on the 12th hole on a replica redoubt from the American Revolutionary War battle that was fought here in 1779, and that's why you see the 1779 denoted in our logo. It's 378 yards from the tips. It is 201 yards from the forward tees. This is a difficult hole. Off the tee, it looks like you have to hit the ball down the right side of the fairway. In fact, you have more room down the left side, even though you can't really tell that from the tee. The trees block it. The better line of play is to take it down the left side of the fairway to avoid the very big oak that is about 50 yards from the green that's protecting the green there. So you're going to want to take it down the left side of the fairway. You're going to have a small creek in front of the green to carry. Should have a short iron into the green. Be careful not to go long, because if you go long, you're going to end up in the Stono River as this green backs up right to the Stono River, which is part of the Intercoastal Waterway. So hit a nice shot in there. Flat plateau on the back of the green, pretty undulating on the front of the green. But it is a beautiful hole. And like I said, we're going to back right up to the river, but then also pay attention to the breeze that can be a factor when you're on the water like that. A lot of times the wind is going to be coming in to you and from the right. So just make note of that when you play the hole. But one of the more picturesque and iconic holes that we have out here at Stono Ferry.
There's no question. Yeah, this is the most beautiful stretch of holes that I've played. I mean, there's a lot of great courses on the water in Charleston, but this is really unique how it lays out there as we started last week at 11, bringing you around basically through 15. It is just really neat. Scott Glaze on Twitter at Scott Glaze. StonoFerryGolf.com is where you can go to book your tee times and find out a whole lot more that you might not know about the golf course. Maybe get someone a gift card. It's always a great gift. Birthdays, anniversaries.
It's a great gift.
It's a great gift.
Especially, I mean, you buy it for your husband. I mean, the women who are loving the show.
Yeah, man.
Trust me, it's a good gift.
That's right. It's fantastic.
That's right.
You can find
instruction. We offer instruction as well. You also buy packs of instruction with us. So improve the game as the weather breaks a little bit.
Absolutely. It's starting to – the temps are coming down. StonoFerryGolf.com for so much more. Scotty, as always, thank you so much for your time, my friend. It's really a pleasure to speak with you every week. You do a wonderful job. Have a great weekend at Stono Ferry. Enjoy some everything. Basketball, hockey, baseball, golf, football, college, NFL. It's all there this weekend. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Always enjoy it. We'll see you next week. Have a safe weekend.
Yep, next week, U.S. Open with Scott Glaze. All right, 1:55, final few minutes here. What day is today, Darren? What day is today? Well, we know it's September the 10th. It's also National Swap Ideas Day. Now, if I got an idea and you have an idea,
we'll trade them.
We'll trade them, but they'll be the same idea because we're partners. That's what.
But you should swap ideas. I mean, because the best ideas come from multiple sources.
True. Unless it's a really good idea, then don't give it away.
Then keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't tell anybody that you don't trust, which to me is almost nobody now.
Yeah.
It is also National School Picture Day. All right. School.
I have my Penn State ID, I think, still in my wallet.
Oh, my God. I don't have mine from Carolina
at
all. I don't know what happened to those.
I certainly don't need it.
Yeah, no. And football's on tonight, so if for some off-the-wall reason you're not ordering DB's cheesesteaks, which you're crazy, you should be ordering DB's cheesesteaks for your meal tonight, or going up to Dog and Duck to eat, one or the other.
Uh-huh.
Then have yourself a TV dinner. It is National TV Dinner Day.
You know, it used to be a thing to have, like, those wooden trays and have a TV dinner.
Uh-huh. What's the best TV dinner? Is it Hungry Man?
I don't know, because it doesn't really happen anymore. I think more people have open floor plans now, so you can kind of sit somewhere in the kitchen.
Oh yeah, we do.
And watch. Yeah,
y'all do.
Yeah, sit at the island. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have dinner in front of the TV. Maybe that's my TV dinner.
That's the point.
Oh yeah. All right. Before we run here, just one last note on this statue. We've done everything today, but covered the statue, so we need to. It weighs 10. This is the Gamecock statue that is being right now
installed.
It's a 2-week installation period. It starts today. It'll end right before the first game, the 26th. On site right there at the corner of George Rogers and Bluff Road in Columbia, they'll be welding and grinding, and it'll be underneath like a big tent, so you won't really be able to see it. That statue weighs 10 tons. It cost $1 million. It is 20 feet tall. It's 20 feet wide, and it was driven to Columbia, South Carolina from San Diego on a flatbed truck. How many people saw that coming down the road and go, that's a big blank?
I wonder if they even could tell what it was. Because if you're in the middle of the country, you're not looking at it. You're like, who wants a huge golden rooster?
Yeah,
what
rooster,
is going on?
Really? Yeah. You're on I-20 and you just got passed by a big blank.
Look, it's a gamecock. Yeah. It is what it is.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
It's got big claws and big feet, too.
I tell you what, the folks, the families that gave all the money for this, I promise you they're happy. They did it years ago, long before 2016 when they decided on it and started building it or carving it or whatever they did.
What do you do? Weld it?
Well, I don't know. The guy, he says he's an artist, so.
Well, clearly.
Yeah. It's taken over 3 years. But it's here.
That's what you like, right? You order something, like, is it coming soon?
What year are they only going to have about 20% of their fans? Probably 2020. We'll get it there then.
That's when we'll put it there.
So nobody can tell how much I screwed up on it. All right. Wow, jam-packed today. We had a lot of fun. We'll have a lot more fun tomorrow with Raphael and Michael and God knows what else. We'll be picking games and a bunch of stuff tomorrow. Another road trip to take as well.
Oh, yeah.
But thanks to Corey McCartney, Gene Sapikoff, and Scott Glaze today. And as always, thanks to Darren Goldwater for his very fine, difficult work here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Thank you, man.
And once again, we'll finish by saying our thoughts and prayers are with Mark Romness and his family as he has passed away. A wonderful man. Mark, we'll miss you, buddy. And thank you for being a good friend for the last few years. With all that being said, have a thirsty Thursday. Have a wonderful day. Football tonight, baseball, you name it, it's there. We got a real football weekend taking shape. Can't wait. For Darren, I'm Jamie. This has been the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We're back tomorrow, Friday at noon.